This is Tetzaveh. This is Exodus 27:20 to 30:10. That means, and he commanded. Right. Surprisingly, Moshe doesn't get a mention in this parsha. Just as the Israelites at the foot of the mountain went through a period without Moshe, so will we. We won't have him for the whole Torah. Right? Could it be that Jehovah deliberately hid Moshe from them for a while, just to see how well they've internalized the truths that he's taught them this far? Now we can ask ourselves the question, in the midst of a season of spiritual disconnect, when the word of Jehovah is rare or non-existent in our world, do we stay true to his ways? Or do we run after the first thing that calls us off in another direction? It's a question, isn't it? Because sometimes we do feel a bit estranged, don't we? What do? Do we hold fast to that which we know to be the truth? Or do we go following off after every crazy idea that we hear? Now it's speculated that in the absence of any reference in this parsha to Moshe's name, that it's a divine tribute to him, because the anniversary of Moshe's birth and death, generally believed to be the 7th of Adar, usually falls during the week that we read Tetzaveh. And you could ask, why such a strange tribute? Because, reason the sages, after the golden calf incident, Moshe interceded on behalf of the generations of the Exodus, saying, "Forgive their sin, but if you will not, erase me now from your book that you have written." So according to the Midrash, Jehovah honoured or punished Moshe by granting his request to blot out his name, but only from the parsha that's read during the week of the anniversary of his birth and death. It is odd, the whole thing, he's not even mentioned in it once. Can you imagine all the sages sitting around going, why is this, we've got to figure this out, this is too mad. So that's how they came up with it. Tetzaveh is 4 letters, Tav, Zad, Ozadeh, Vav and Hey. Tav is a Hebraic pictograph representing a covenant or a covenant sign. Zadeh is a Hebraic pictograph of a man bowing in submission before Jehovah. The Hebrew letter Vav is a pictograph of a nail or a peg, something which connects or fastens things together. And the Hey is actually a pictograph representation of a window or an opening in a Bedouin-style tent. It's a place where both light and fresh air are admitted. Thus, it represents a place of revelation and inspiration. So, from a Hebraic standpoint, when the word Tetzaveh pitches, what it pitches is a process where, as an outgrowth of an eternal covenant, a man who bows in submission before Jehovah becomes permanently affixed or connected to a place of revelation and inspiration. Okay, and the message of the parsha is that there is such a man and such a process in Jehovah's divine plan. On earth, Moshe's brother Aaron is about to become such a man. And on earth, all Aaron's sons are about to be called to be such men. They're called Kohanim, or priests. And we'll be going through this as we read on in this parsha. So we'll be looking at service, because that's what a priest does, he serves. But the Hebrew word is avodah, slightly different meaning. Every section and furnishing of the Mishkan calls for its own avodah. So what is avodah? It's actually faithful, selfless service of a beloved superior, motivated by deep respect, love and a sense of worthiness. Avodah is the essence of true worship in spirit and in truth. Right, so once the Mishkan is built, the job at hand will shift to stewarding its holiness. That's what the priests are all about. That means making sure the holiness of the earth, the abiding place of Jehovah, is made manifest to the world, but also maintained, even in the midst of earthly people and things that are mundane, irreverent, and downright unclean. It's in the middle of the camp, isn't it, surrounded by all this filth of the people. Avodah is not a means to earn righteousness or salvation for men. Avodah is simply the natural response of a heart that loves the King. It's designed to be powered by love, not motivated by reward. That's what our service is to be powered by, our love for Him, not what do I get. Right, let's have a little read. Exodus 27:20. It says, "And thou shalt command the children of Israel that they bring thee pure olive oil beaten for the light, to cause the lamp to burn always. In the tabernacle of the congregation without the veil, which is before the testimony, Aaron and his sons shall order it from evening to morning before the Lord. It shall be a statute forever until the generations on behalf of the children of Israel." Okay? Don't have to talk about the olive tree. We just got to. The humble tree and its bitter fruit. Olive trees are not by any means the tallest or most majestic species of tree. I don't know why I'm trying to do that. They are typically short and squatty, and the trunk of the olive tree is not straight, bright and colourful. It is instead gnarled, twisted and knotty. I'll try it. The fruit of the olive tree is anything but sweet. Indeed, it's so bitter that right off the tree it cannot be eaten until it's processed through immersion in lye brine and or salt. They always confuse me on those as well. I always think, do I like it? Don't I like it? I do like it, but I don't know why I like it. Somebody offers me one, I never think, oh yeah, I fancy that. But when I have it, I think it's quite nice, you never know. It's a humble tree with humble fruit, and perhaps that's the reason why it was selected by Jehovah to be the first symbol representing his covenant people. And that's an olive tree, if anyone hasn't seen one before. The olive tree is the first tree mentioned in the first fruit tree mentioned in the Torah, aside from the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which were found obviously in the Garden of Eden. And in Genesis 8:11, the Torah reveals that the olive tree was the first form of plant life that the inhabitants of the ark encountered after the great flood. Sent the dove out, doesn't he? So the olive leaf symbolised restoration and recovery. It was the first sign of life, wasn't it, after the flood? The olive tree therefore became for all time a sign of new life, new hope, and a new order rising from the debris of a purging judgment. And the olive itself is a symbol of the fruit of the new life and hope which we have been given, and the evidence of our participation in the new order which is arising from the debris of our former way of life. Our fruit is what comes from, look at the nonsense that was my life. This is new life. The Lord's given me new life, and look, there's the fruit. So where do we get all the olives? This is a thing, isn't it? They're all in Mount Sinai, and they're saying, I want to bring all the oil. So where did he get it? Mount Sinai, where the discourse was given, was not exactly the kind of place where olive trees grew naturally. The olive tree is instead indigenous to the mountains of the land of Israel, especially around Jerusalem. Right, the requirement that olive oil be brought by each person in the camp, this is what some people reckon, perhaps lays the foundation for all the focus of later scripture upon the Mount of Olives. Because after all, that was like Yeshua's chosen place, wasn't it, to hang around when he was on the earth. It's also the place where he departed from, and it's also the place which is the scene of his return. So olives play a massive part, don't they? And if anyone wants to know what it looks like, I'm sure Terry knows because he's been. But there's a picture of it. I just think that's nuts to look at the place where he's going to come back. It's like, okay. Wow. So, just so we know that the Lord's got this thing going on with the olive tree. Jeremiah 11:16. Jehovah called my name a green olive tree, fair and of goodly fruit, with the noise of a great tumult. He hath kindled fire upon it, and the branches of it are broken. Okay, he's talking about Israel and the separation that happened when the kingdom was split. Psalm 52:8. But I am like a green olive tree in the house of God. I trust in the mercy of God forever and ever. And in Romans 11:17-18, we get told this. And if some of the branches be broken off, and thou, being a wild olive tree, this is a description of us, wow, we're grafted in among them, and with them partakest of the root and fatness of the olive tree. Boast not against the branches, but if thou boast, thou bearest not the root, but the root thee. Okay, so we're described as this wild olive tree, because we're the northern kingdom, we got dispersed. The natural branches, it's talking about the house of Judah. Now, we're going to move on to the oil, because it's what he's asked them to bring, isn't it? The first reference in Torah to oil, which in Hebrew is shemen, is found in Genesis 28:18. After experiencing his first encounter with Jehovah in the form of a dream, in which he saw Jehovah appear and heard him speak from the top of a great staircase, Yaakov rose early in the morning, set upright the stone on which he laid his head as he was dreaming, and he poured out the oil on the stone. Okay? And he actually repeated that when he was at the place the next time. Okay? And from this, because you ever wonder, why do we put oil and anoint people? Where's all that come from? From this beginning, the act of anointing something or someone with oil has become synonymous with consecrating, i.e. setting apart that thing or person unto the service and the use of Jehovah. By divine directive, each and every component of each and every servant in the Mishkan was consecrated by the pouring of oil. So the Lord actually endorses this by saying this is how his stuff in his temple is to be set apart, and the priests as well. And here we've got a picture of Saul anointed by Samuel. Now David, Shlomo, and most of the kings of Israel and Judah were consecrated through the act of being anointed with oil. And this is interesting. Of course, the title Messiah, which in Hebrew is Mashiach, is believed to refer specifically to one set apart to Jehovah through an anointing of oil. So Messiah actually means anointed one, and it means anointed with oil. Bit of science. Bit of science. With an olive oil lamp, what burns and gives off light is not the liquid oil itself, okay, but is instead vaporized molecules of the liquid oil, which are continually being drawn to and released by the heat at the end of the flaming wick. Okay, now in vapor form, olive oil molecules have a lower combustion point, lower than that of the wick. And this means that the vapors of olive oil burn before the wick does. And the burning of those produces significantly more light for a much longer period of time than the burning of the wick itself would. Okay, so just as Jehovah provided the fire in the sanctuary for the sacrifice, he gives us this divine spark. And as we draw near in obedience to him, we produce light and draw all men to him. But it's the flame that draws first. Are you with me? Now in Ezekiel 36:27, the Lord says this: I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you shall keep my judgments and do them. Now the oil represents our desire to walk according to his word. The greater the desire, the brighter the light shines, and we're told to be a light to the world, aren't we? So what else does this picture tell us? And here's something fabulous, isn't it? Somebody's made a lamp out of one of them. We've got one here, so we can make one later. Right, the oil which each one of us is to produce and bring forth is similarly drawn forth by divine fires, often of testing to purify us. We are drawn into those fires by Jehovah on purpose, so that what is released is divine light, okay, which gets him the glory as opposed to giving us the glory. So another thing to note is that it's very difficult to mix oil with any other liquid. We don't mix together with other elements of society to become one with them. No matter how hard some try to mix the oil in the water, they always come back to a point of separation, don't we? Now, we're not called to be like the world. What are we called to be? Isaiah 42:6 says, I, Jehovah, have called thee in righteousness, and will hold thine hand, and will keep thee, and give thee for a covenant of the people, a light of the Gentiles. This oil that separates us is to bring light to shine, to attract people to the Lord. Isaiah 63, the Gentiles shall come to thy light, and the kings to the brightness of thy rising. And Acts 13:47, for so hath Jehovah commanded us, saying, I have set thee to be a light of the Gentiles, that thou shouldest be for salvation unto the ends of the earth. This is our job. We need this oil, and this oil is demonstrated by our desire to keep his commandments and to keep that light shining. Now the oil always floats on top of the water too, doesn't it? And that just reminded me of Deuteronomy 28, when it says, Jehovah shall make thee the head and not the tail. Thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath. If thou hearken unto the commandments of Jehovah thy God, which I command thee this day to observe and to do them. That's an amazing promise, isn't it? You can just read that and think nothing of it. That's the creator of the whole universe telling you, if you hearken to my voice and keep my commandments, it's going to go really well for you. You're going to be the head, not the tail. You're going to be above and not on the bottom. It's like, wow, I like that. So Jehovah makes it clear that every one of his people is expected to participate in his plan for lighting the world. Because when Moses, he didn't say, tell Solomon, just a few of them to bring some oil for the lamps. No, everyone. Not a single individual is ever to allow himself or herself to be without oil for the lamp. Now, as the olive is the sign of new life and new hope, the production of oil from the olive is the sign of submission to the life mission and the light-bearing function for which he redeemed us, and he gave us new life and new hope. So what Jehovah is calling for is a perpetual olive oil-fueled flame on the earth. Jehovah is never to be left without a witness to the light. And he looks to us to fulfill this, doesn't he? Matthew 5:14, 16, Yeshua says this, "You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and give it light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven." Amazing. Matthew 25, 1-13. We can't not talk about the 10 virgins, can we? "The kingdom of heaven shall be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. And 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish. They that were foolish took their lamps, and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. While the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept." Okay. At midnight there was a cry made, "Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him." Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps, and the foolish said unto the wise, "Give us of your oil, for our lamps are gone out." But the wise answered, saying, "Not so, lest there be not enough for us and you. But go ye rather to them that sell, and buy for yourselves." And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. Afterward came also the other virgins, saying, "Lord, Lord, open to us." But he answered and said, "Verily I say unto you, I know you not." This is the Hebrew concept of knowing as well. It means intimately. "What therefore, for ye know not the day or the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh." Everybody recognises this is a tale of, obviously, when Messiah comes. We don't want to be with the foolish, do we? We want to be with the wise who are okay and get invited into this banquet. So the wise had light, the foolish didn't. So defining the terms wise, Psalm 19:7 says, "The Torah of Jehovah is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of Jehovah is sure, making wise the simple." I want to be wise. Okay. Matthew 7:24, "Therefore whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man which built his house upon the rock." So listen to his words and doing them. That's what it means to shema. The foolish people, Proverbs 1-7, "The fear of Jehovah is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction." Proverbs 10:8, "The wise in heart will receive commandments, but a praising fool shall fall." Okay, Matthew 7:26, "And everyone that heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them not shall be likened unto a foolish man which built his house upon the sand." The foolish are those that ignore the commandments of Jehovah. We don't want to be in that group, do we? Because there will come a day, and it bang, when they cry, you'll hear it, and everybody will wake up, and it'll be, hang on there, what's going on? So the lamp and the light, what do they represent? Proverbs 6:23, "For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is light, and reproofs of instruction are the way of life." So the commandment's a lamp, and the Torah is the light. Right, so let's have a look at it. The oil is from the pressed olives, which is the fruit. The oil goes into the lamp, which is the commandment, and then the light, or the Torah of Jehovah, shines forth from the vessel. So fruit is the understanding of the word of Jehovah as demonstrated in the results of a life that applies itself to living out the word. Not just hearing, but hearing and doing. Matthew 13:23, "But he that received the seed into the good ground is he that heareth the word and understandeth it, which also beareth fruit." Now, the pressing or tribulation that results from our fruit shapes and forms us into oil, isn't it? And the oil is the spirit or desire to send out the light of the Torah of Jehovah to the world. The harder we strive to draw near to Jehovah, often the greater the tribulation, and often the greater the light shines. But we knew it wasn't ever going to be easy, did we? Because Yeshua says, look what they did to me, look how they treated me. Now, if we take another look at Exodus 27:20, remember, that's important to remember as well, at the times of great tribulation, the word of Jehovah is always shone the brightest. If we read this again, it says, "Command the people of Israel to bring you pure oil, desire to obey, from beaten olives, which is our tribulation, for the lamp, which is the commandment, that a light, which is the Torah, may be kept burning regularly." So we've got the wise are those who are obedient, the foolish are those who are disobedient. The lamp is the commandment, the light is the Lord of God, and the oil is the resultant to desire to obey the Lord of God. So we can read it like this: the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took the commandments and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were disobedient and 5 were obedient. For when the disobedient took their commandments, they took no desire to obey the commandments with them, but the wise took their desire to follow the law of God with their commandments. Where are you at? Have you got the desire in your heart to follow His commandments? We know that there's so many people who know what they should be doing and they just don't do it. There's no desire there at all. Now, you say they get told to go and buy oil, don't they? And there's Proverbs 23:23 says, buy the truth and sell it not, also wisdom and instruction and understanding. And people say, why was the 10 virgins? Okay, Matthew 15:24, he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And they're recognised, aren't they, as being 10 tribes in the north of the house of Israel. And it's saying that they were all asleep until he was about to come back. That's actually a sign, isn't it? Because the house of Israel was completely asleep until just before he comes back. And they woke up and he's saying, after these people are going to have no oil, no desire whatsoever to follow my commandments. They're the ones who don't get admitted in. Right. Chapter 28 says, and take now unto thee Aaron thy brother and his sons with him, from among the children of Israel, that they may minister unto me in the priest's office, even Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar, Aaron's sons. Okay, so a quick look at Aaron. The Hebrew name Aharon, which is an Aleph, a Hey, a Resh, a Vav, and a Nun suffix. Some dictionaries tell you his name means lofty or teacher, and often he was neither. Strong says his name means light bringer, but then says, but we're not sure. So if we look at the pictographic meaning of his name, it might help. The first letter, Aleph. Jehovah gives revelation and inspiration, which is the Hey, to the head of the household or sheikh, which is the Resh, that securely grounds and preserves the household intact, which is the Vav, in order that the Messiah, the Nun Sophet, may come forth. That does actually sound like the job of a priest, doesn't it? So even his name, actually in pictograph form, says what he actually did. Now, Jehovah created Adam, even when he was a slave in Egypt, as one who could speak well. It tells us this in Exodus 4:14. Jehovah, it seems, had saved him from the Pharaoh's death decree concerning all the Hebrew babies, the male ones. And he trained him as a mediator by making him Moshe's mouthpiece or spokesman before the Pharaoh. So at first, he was Moshe's mouthpiece. Next thing he's getting elevated, it's going to be Jehovah's. So why Aaron? Was it because he was brilliant? The golden calf incident, right? It will after all be Aaron who calls for the people to bring the gold for use in making the golden calf. It will be Aaron who fashions it into a calf. I think it's hilarious, isn't it? He says it went in the fire, it just come out like that. It's like, oh, okay. And he declares to the people, these are your gods. He probably said, this is your Elohim, O Israel, which brought you up out of the land of Egypt. Now, it's also Aaron who builds an altar to the calf and who calls for the feast to be given in the calf's honour. This isn't good, is it? This is not looking good on his CV to mount in to be the high priest. Also, later on, he joins with Miriam in speaking against Moshe concerning Moshe's wife. And he only repents of it when Jehovah rebukes the two of them and strikes Miriam with leprosy. It's not looking good, is it? Really not. So you could say his selection for the position of high priest cannot be said, shouldn't be considered to have been based upon merit. I think that's fair. He wasn't holy, was he, than anyone else in the community. His appointment was not made based on merit, but actually despite the lack thereof. It reminds me a bit of Paul, who said, I am chief among sinners. He was picked, wasn't he, as an apostle, and yet, look at his history, he went around murdering Christians. It's not crazy. So, such is the basis of all selections of Jehovah, because there is none righteous, not one. So, there's another opinion. They're so good-hearted, most rabbis, that they've come up with this other opinion, and I think it's fabulous, I think it's lovely. Hillel, the 1st century, he said, be disciples of Aaron, loving peace and pursuing peace, loving people and drawing them near to the Torah. Now, according to a similar tradition, whenever Aaron heard the two people were arguing, he would go to each of them and tell them how much the other one regretted his actions. Until the two people agreed to face each other as friends. He's just a lovely fallacy. And this line of Talmudic thought even excuses Aaron's participation in the Het HaEgah, which is the golden calf sin, saying that he loved peace so much that he constructed the idol only in order to prevent dissension among the people, intending to buy time until Moshe returned from Mount Sinai. And this line of reasoning says that it was in order to discourage the people from making an idol that he asked them to give up their precious jewellery for its casting. That's painting in a very different light, isn't it? It's kind of nice. I kind of like that. I could go with that. I don't know whether it's accurate. It says in verse 2, and thou shalt make holy garments for Aaron thy brother for glory and for beauty. And thou shalt speak unto all that are wise-hearted, whom I have filled with the spirit of wisdom, that they may make Aaron's garments to consecrate him, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office. Now, every mention of garments in the Torah must be considered in relation to the origin of and reason for garments, which was namely what happened in the Garden of Eden. So after they disobeyed Jehovah, partook of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they realised that they were naked. What did they do? They sewed fig leaves together, made the first ever outfit that the world ever knew. That's nuts, isn't it, I think? The first ever garment. So, the fig leaf covering that they made for themselves were, however, man-made, superficial and temporary. And when Jehovah came walking in the garden, he called to Adam. He had to hide, didn't he? Adam hid away. And despite his fig leaf clothing, he actually said, I'm naked. Okay, so it tells us, doesn't it, that Jehovah provided garments of skin to clothe them later. And it's only when we're clothed by that which Jehovah gives us that we can stand before him. Our own efforts are never good enough. Never good enough. Now, verse 4 says, there's a picture, by the way, of the high priest, if you're wondering what he looks like. Looks quite a serious chap, doesn't he? He looks a little bit like Michael Rood, actually. And these are the garments which they shall make: a breastplate, and an ephod, and a robe, and a broidered coat, and mitre, and a girdle. And they shall make holy garments for Aaron thy brother and his sons, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office. And they shall take gold, and blue, and purple, and scarlet, and fine linen, and they shall make the ephod of gold, of blue, and of purple, and of scarlet, and of fine twine linen, of cunning work. Remember, JP said the other day that scarlet's always in between purple, is always in between blue and scarlet, because it's a mixture of the two. And I thought, is it? And every time I read it, yeah, it is. He was right. He was right. It shall have the two shoulder pieces thereof joined at the two edges thereof, and so it shall be joined together. And the curious girdle of the ephod which is upon it shall be of the same, according to the work thereof, even of gold, of blue, and purple, and scarlet, and fine twined linen. I'd love to know what the Hebrew meaning of curious girdle was, because I don't think that does much, does it really? I was putting my curious girdle on. I'm like, what were you doing? Oh look, he's shrunk in the wash. That's not good, is it? Talk about garments. Right, and thou shalt take 2 onyx stones, engrave on them the names of the children of Israel. 6 of the names on one stone, and on the other 6 names of the rest on the other stone, according to their birth. With the work of an engraver in stone, like the engravings of a signet, shalt thou engrave the 2 stones with the names of the children of Israel. Thou shalt make them to be set in ouches of gold, and thou shalt put the 2 stones upon the shoulders of the ephod for stones of memorial unto the children of Israel. And Aaron shall bear their names before the Lord upon his 2 shoulders for a memorial. We know that this is all like a picture, isn't it, of Messiah as well. So the fact that he's, the stones, it's the names of the children of Israel. Some commentator points out it doesn't say Baptist, Methodist. it's the names of the tribes of Israel that he's bearing up. So I just thought that was quite funny. Verse 13 says, and thou shalt make ouches of gold, and 2 chains of pure gold at the ends of wreathen work shalt thou make them, and fasten the wreathen chains to the ouches. And thou shalt make the breastplate of judgment with cunning work, after the work of the ephod thou shalt make it, of gold, of blue, and of purple, and of scarlet, and of twined linen shalt thou make it. 4 square it shall be, being doubled, a span shall be the length thereof, and a span shall be the breadth thereof. This thing about the purple being in the middle of the blue and the scarlet, I heard that the blue represents obedience and the scarlet represents sacrifice. And we're called to be a royal priesthood. And purple is the royal colour, isn't it? So you want to be that, it involves obedience and it involves sacrifice. Now, verse 17 says, and thou shalt set in it settings of stones, even 4 rows of stones. The first shall be a sardius, a topaz, and a carbuncle, This shall be the first robe. The second robe, an emerald, a sapphire, and a diamond. The third, these all sound lovely, don't they? Ooh, we like these. Ooh. Third row is a ligure and a gate and an amethyst. The fourth row is a beryl and an onyx and a jasper. They shall be set in gold in their enclosings. And the stones shall be with the names of the children of Israel, 12 according to their names. All the time his plans are all to do with Israel and the 12 tribes. Like the engravings of a signet, everyone with his name shall they be, according to the 12 tribes. There's something marvellous about this. Okay. You know the precious stones we just mentioned, they all sound lovely, don't they? We like them. They were all meant to be seen in natural light of our world. What happens when Jehovah picks out precious stones for something altogether more magnificent and something otherworldly? What about the New Jerusalem? We're told that Jehovah uses 12 precious stones to build a city, don't we? So I just want us to read it in Revelation 21:19-20. The foundations and the wall of the city were garnished with all manner of precious stones. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third chalcedony, the fourth an emerald, the fifth sardonyx, the sixth sardius, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth a topaz, the 10th a chrysoprasus, the 11th a jacinth, the 12th an amethyst. There's no diamonds. This is a different list. There's no diamonds for this down. There's no rubies. What's going on? There's no diamonds. What's happening? Okay. So the stones are different. Now, this is not, most light bounces about in our world. It's like it's going all over the shop, yeah. And then we've got light that goes in a specific direction, which is a laser, like in a dead straight line. But then recently we discovered something called pure or purer light. Wow, what's that? It's light. I was trying to explain this to my dad, and I kept saying, it's light that's been cross-pollinated, Dad. He was looking at me and he was nuts. It's actually light that's been cross-polarized, okay, filtered as it were. This is, we call it pure light. Now, scientists took samples of many jewels and shone pure light through them. And it turns out there's two types of jewels. There's anisotropic jewels and isotropic jewels. What does this all mean? Okay, right. Anisotropic jewels in pure light, whatever their colour to begin with, turn into all the colours of the rainbow and produce stunning patterns. Isotropic jewels in pure light lose all their colour and just go black. Bear in mind, this has only just been discovered. There's a diamond, yeah. Spinel, that's a ruby. And the pyro and the alamandine, they are garnets. In pure light, they're not much, are they? So you know when John was writing about this city and he was, oh, it's going to have these precious stones, and you think, where's the diamonds? I know. But the precious stones that are found in the foundation to Jehovah's city, where it says, there's no need of the sun, for he is its light. That sounds like pure light to me. That's what it looks like. Isn't that amazing? It's beautiful, eh? How did he know? I just think that's fantastic. I'll just leave it up a bit so you can look. Can you imagine what this New Jerusalem is going to look like? Whoa. Whoa. You can't even get your head around it, can you? Shining with its light. Purest light of all. Insane. There we go. Verse 22 says, and thou shalt make upon the breastplate chains at the ends of wreathen work of pure gold. And thou shalt make upon the breastplate 2 rings of gold, and shalt put the 2 rings on the 2 ends of the breastplate. And thou shalt put the 2 wreathen chains of gold in the 2 rings, which are on the ends of the breastplate. It's very specific, isn't it? And on the other 2 ends and 2 wreathen chains thou shalt fashion in the 2 ouches, and put them on the shoulder pieces of the ephod before it. And thou shalt make 2 rings of gold, and thou shalt put them upon the 2 ends of the breastplate in the border thereof, which is in the side of the ephod inward. And the 2 other rings of gold thou shalt make, and shalt put them on the 2 sides of the ephod underneath, toward the forepart thereof, over against the other coupling thereof, above the curious girdle, whatever that is of the ephod. And they shall bind the breastplate by the rings thereof unto the rings of the ephod with a lace of blue, that it may be above the curious girdle of the ephod, and that the breastplate be not loosed from the ephod. And Aaron shall bear the, again, if this is an important thing, shall bear the names of the children of Israel in the breastplate of judgment upon his heart, when he goeth into the holy place for a memorial before Jehovah continually. And thou shalt put in the breastplate of judgment the Urim and the Thummim. These are odd things, aren't they? And they shall be upon Aaron's heart when he goeth in before the Lord. And Aaron shall bear the judgment of the children of Israel upon his heart before the Lord continually. The Urim and the Thummim. What on earth? What's going on? Well, apparently the Urim and the Thummim were some kind of material object small enough to be inserted in a pouch in the ephod of the high priest. Okay. And they appear to have been an acceptable, indeed prescribed means of divine communication with the nation of Israel, at least during the period before the kings and the prophets were given. Now, from passages such as Deuteronomy 33:8, 1 Samuel 14:36, and 1 Samuel 23:6-12, we can infer that the Urim and the Thummim together formed kind of like sacred lots to be used by the high priest in consulting the Lord's will, or perhaps as a kind of divine ordeal to discover the guilt or the innocence of a suspected person. Strange things, aren't they, these things? Now, the word our English Bibles translate as Urim is a derivative form of the Hebrew word Or, which means light, which I think is interesting. Light's always synonymous with wisdom, isn't it? Where we get enlightened from. And the word our English Bibles translate as Thummim or Thummim, it means to make complete, make perfect, or preserve innocent. So these two stones are basically going to give us wisdom and shed light in order to make things complete and make things perfect. Okay. Now, after the death of David, there's no more mention in the Tanakh of anyone consulting Jehovah by means of the Urim and the Thummim. So where are they? It's been puzzling me. It's really been puzzling me. Really been puzzled. It's puzzled explorers for years. I just wonder. Oh, I've got the wrong slide. Okay. Garments of the high priest. You guys wonder where I was going with that, haven't you? Right, the frontlets and the headdress, there we go. That's what he looks like. It's curious garments, I'm not really sure what it is. So what we've been looking at is priestly garments or armour. Right, the breastplate. On the jewels were inscribed the names of Israel's 12 tribes. Therefore, what we have foreshadowed here is Christ as our great high priest, bearing on his heart, sustaining and presenting before God his blood-bought people. I like that. Well, verse 31 says, Thou shalt make the robe of the ephod all of blue, and there shall be an hole in the top of it. In the midst thereof it shall have a binding of woven work round about the whole of it, as it were, the whole of an habagion, that it be not red. That's just like, what's a habagion? So I looked it up. It's an old English word for breastplate. Okay, it actually properly means a coat of mail. It denotes a military garment strongly and thickly woven and covered with mail round the neck and breast. Okay, so it's like chainmail. This is what the high priest is wearing, by the way, but it's not quite. And it's to remind us that it's a different type of battle that's being fought. So let's consider the garments of beauty and glory in light of Ephesians 6, 8-10. We know about this, don't we? The armour. Put on the armour of God. Before we do, see, we have this idea of priests. We don't see them as making war, and yet everything that we read in the scriptures seems to be leading us to think, hang on, to do. So, I'm just thinking of the Levites. Who did the Levites guard the tabernacle from? Because that was one of their jobs, wasn't it? Well, that's a trick question. They actually protected the people from the tabernacle. It's as if the pattern established earlier on the mountaintop is still in operation, where he said, keep the people back, keep the people back. And that's what they did. Now, Exodus 19:12 says this, And thou shalt set bounds unto the people round about, saying, Take heed to yourselves that ye go not up into the mount or touch the border of it. Whosoever touches the mount shall be surely put to death. So, what he's saying is that basically the people, if they're unclean, they can't come into the presence of God, so they would protect the people from doing this very thing. Now, before we go to Ephesians, let's read on in Exodus and see if we can find out any more. There shall be an hole in the top of it, in the midst thereof it shall have a binding of woven work round about the whole of it, as it were the whole of an habagion, that it be not rent. And beneath upon the hem of it thou shalt make pomegranates of blue, of purple, and of scarlet round about the hem thereof, and bells of gold between them round about. A golden bell and a pomegranate, a golden bell and a pomegranate upon the hem of the robe round about. And it shall be upon Aaron to minister, and his sound shall be heard when he goeth in unto the holy place before the Lord, and when he cometh out, that he die not. And thou shalt make a plate of pure gold, and grave upon it, like the engravings of a signet, holiness to the Lord. And thou shalt put it on a blue lace, that it may be upon the mitre. Upon the front of the mitre it shall be, and it shall be upon Aaron's forehead, that Aaron may bear the iniquity of the holy things, which the children of Israel shall hallow in all their holy gifts. And it shall be always upon his forehead, that they may be accepted before the Lord. And thou shalt embroider the coat of fine linen, and thou shalt make the mitre of fine linen, and thou shalt make the girdle of needlework. And for Aaron's sons thou shalt make coats, and thou shalt make them for girdles, and bonnets shalt thou make for them, for glory and for beauty. And thou shalt put them upon Aaron thy brother, and his sons with him, and shalt anoint them, and consecrate them, and sanctify them, that they may minister unto me in the priest's office. And thou shalt make them linen breeches to cover their nakedness, from the loins even unto the thighs they shall reach. And they shall be upon Aaron and upon his sons when they come in unto the tabernacle of the congregation, or when they come near unto the altar to minister in the holy place, that they bear not iniquity and die. It shall be a statute forever unto him and his seed after him. Now, we've got a picture here of what the priest is going to wear, and I want to see it in the light of the armour that we're told that we're to put on in Ephesians 6. In Ephesians 6 it says, "Finally, my brother, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armour of God." I used to get taught that this was like put on like what a Roman soldier would put on. I don't think that's what it's talking about. Put on the whole armour of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. The Greek for wiles, this is mad, is methodia, which means cunning arts, deceit, trickery, craft, to lie in wait, to ambush. And the root of the word's got something to do with travelling or being on a journey. Okay, and it says, so whilst lying wait to ambush you on your journey, it's a devil, diabolos means false accuser. So what it's saying in that, it's saying, put on the whole armour of God, that you may be able to stand against the ambush from the false accuser that awaits you on your journey with trickery, craft and deceit. That sounds about accurate, doesn't it? For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Remember I said before, well, the priests don't fight, do they? I know, we do. We do. Now this is the armour that was put on, it's telling us here. It says, "Wherefore, take unto you the whole armour of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girded about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness." Right, we read before, Exodus 28:15, "Thou shalt make the breastplate of judgment with cunning work, after the work of the ephod thou shalt make it." Now, the words justice and judgment and righteousness are interchangeable. So when it says here that you should have on the breastplate of righteousness, it's just as easy saying you should have on the breastplate of judgment, just as we've seen the high priest described before. The belt of truth, it says, doesn't it? It says, "And thou shalt embroider the coat of fine linen, and thou shalt make the mitre of fine linen, and thou shalt make the girdle of needlework." We've got a belt of truth being described here. In verse 15 it says, "Shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace." Now interestingly, the priests would go barefoot because they were standing on holy ground. And we hear about that, don't we, with Moses and with Joshua. They were told to take the shoes off. Isaiah 52:7 says, "How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him that bringeth good tidings, that publisheth peace, that bringeth good tidings of good, that publisheth salvation, that saith unto Zion, thy God reigneth." See, that's what we're to shod our feet with, to go and bring the good news. Nothing else, just like the priests. Now, there's a description in Isaiah 11 of the Messiah, and he sounds like a warrior too, because it says, "But with righteousness shall he judge the poor, and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. And righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his reins. It's again describing the same stuff that the priest would wear, but it's describing it in a kind of like a military kind of a way there, isn't it? Now interestingly, talking about the priests, Numbers 4:30 says, from 30 years old and upward, even unto 50 years old, shalt thou number them. This is the priests. Everyone that entereth into the service, this is the priestly service, to do the work of the tabernacle of the congregation. Now the word for service used here means a mass of people organised for war. That's not, we have this idea of what a priest is. Hello, he likes tea, he likes cakes. But that's not the scriptural idea at all. Because the warfare the priest was involved in was probably more important than what the warriors were involved in. It says, above all, taking the shield of faith wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. So the shield of faith, what's that? Psalm 5:11-12. But let all those who put their trust in thee rejoice. Let them ever shout for joy, because thou defendest them. Let them also that love thy name be joyful in thee. For thou, Jehovah, wilt bless the righteous, with favour wilt thou compass him as with a shield. The word compass there means completely encircle, and the word for shield there it means big shield. Big. So, do we calculate and understand that every decision that we make is an effect, not just in the world around us and the lives to which we're connected, but in the heavenlies as well? If we're his servants, members of his covenant, residents of his kingdom, we're under constant attack. Now, there was a priest that would go into the battle and he would declare the word of Jehovah. His faith was a shield, wasn't it? Numbers 31:6 says, and Moshe sent them to the war, 1,000 of every tribe, them and Phinehas the son of Eleazar the priest to the war, with the holy instruments and the trumpets that blow in his hand. So all his mates have got big armour and shields and weapons and that. He's just got holy instruments. So what's stopping him from getting struck down and getting hit by arrows? Just his faith, isn't it? The fact that he knows the Lord's put him there and he's got a purpose to fulfill. That's all. Deuteronomy 21:4 says, when thou goest out to battle against thine enemies and seest horses and chariots and a people more than thou, be not afraid of them, for Jehovah thy God is with thee, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. And it shall be when ye are come nigh unto the battle, that the priest shall approach and speak unto the people, and shall say unto them, hear, O Israel, ye approach this day unto battle against your enemies. Let not your hearts faint, fear not, and do not tremble, neither be ye terrified because of them. For Jehovah your God is he that goeth with you, to fight for you against your enemies, to save you. Again, the priest, the important part of the battle. And it's the words that he speaks. And we talk about the sword of the Spirit. We know that the Bible is a double-edged sword, don't we? Isaiah 11:4. But with righteousness shall he judge the poor, and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. And he hath made my mouth like a sharp sword, in the shadow of his hand he hid me, and made me a polished shaft, in his quiver he hath hid me. Hosea 6:5. Therefore have I hewed them by the prophets, I have slain them by the words of my mouth, and my judgments are as the light that goeth forth. Now the helmet of salvation, what's that? The Hebrew word is Yeshua, isn't it? Bear in mind that the priest serving had the following inscription, holy to Jehovah. This is the helmet that it's talking about. Hebrews 12:14 says, follow peace with all men and holiness, without which no man shall see the Lord. The people of Jehovah are to be set apart, aren't they? I think it's interesting this thing's on your head. Because 2 Corinthians 10:5 says, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. We are called to be a holy people and set apart. Now Ephesians 6:18 says praying always, doesn't it? Which it just sounds like the job of the priests, who were always bringing forth the offerings, and they always did it with prayer and supplications. Verse 18 actually says, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. And the word thereunto is a bit of an odd word, isn't it? Whereunto. It's broken down into 3 Greek words, eis, tuto and otos, which actually, if you read it, says, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching therefore for him with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. So you put on the full armour. It's a calling to put on priestly garments. And priestly garments are garments of war. We were talking earlier about Sarah. And she's somebody who's an intercessor. She's actually what people would call a prayer warrior, isn't she? But we're called to put on our garments every day because we're in a battle. And I think we forget it sometimes, don't we? We do have an enemy. And we have to remember that the Lord's given us everything that we need so that we can be protected. He's given us the sword of the Spirit as well, hasn't he? Not all defensive. Not at all. Now he's asking us to dress as he does, because the following is the description of Jehovah as he's bringing salvation. Isaiah 59:17 says, for he put on righteousness as a breastplate, and an helmet of salvation upon his head, and he put on the garments of vengeance for clothing, and was clad with zeal as a cloak. 2 Corinthians 10:4 says, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. We're in a battle. Remember that the garments were to be for beauty and glory. They had to be kept clean, which must have been difficult given all the blood. They were always sacrificing anything, but they had to keep the garments clean. Stained garments meant that the priest's service was invalid and useless. In fact, the old tunics they'd used for the wicks in the menorah and for the big lamps when they had the festival at Sukkot. Now Revelation 3:4 says this, thou hast a few names even in Sardis which have not defiled their garments, and they shall walk with me in white, for they are worthy. We've been given garments, okay? We need to keep them clean. If we want to be considered worthy, if we want to be effective in service to the King, we definitely have to keep our garments clean. How did he get dirty? Jude 1:23 says, and others saved with fear, pulling them out of the fire, hating even the garments spotted by the flesh. By walking after the flesh, we defile our garments. What is walking after the flesh? Romans 8 tells us, really easy, to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Because the carnal mind is enmity against God, for it is not subject to the Torah of God, neither indeed can it be. So then, they that are in the flesh cannot please God. They've got dirty garments, haven't they? But ye are not in the flesh, your garments are pure, but in the Spirit represented by the oil, which is our desire to follow his commandments. If so be that the Spirit of God dwells in you, if it be that you have this desire to keep his commandments. Now if any man not have the Spirit of Christ, he is none of his. So if this desire isn't in you, you have to start questioning where you stand with the Lord. Chances are your garments are filthy. The priest's garments were actually made to measure. He couldn't serve in his cities, as it were. Okay, he would have been considered as a stranger. Now, we're invited to a great feast. When? I'm quite hungry actually. It's the great day of Jehovah. Okay, that's this feast that we're on about. Zephaniah 1:7-8, it says this. Hold thy peace at the presence of Jehovah Adonai, for the day of Jehovah is at hand. And Jehovah hath prepared a sacrifice, and he hath bid his guests. People are invited. And it shall come to pass in the day of Jehovah's sacrifice that I will punish the princes and the king's children, and all such as are clothed with strange apparel. We need to be wearing what it is that he wants us to wear. We need to be white as well. We need to wear robes of righteousness. Now Yeshua spoke of this same banquet in his parable in Matthew 22. He said, and when the king came in to see the guests, he saw there was a man which had not on a wedding garment. You don't want to be in this position, because this is what happens. He said unto him, friend, how camest thou in hither not having your wedding garment? And he was speechless. Then said the king to the servants, bind him hand and foot and take him away and cast him into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen. It's quite scary, isn't it? Yeah, you need to have the right garments on. They need to be washed. We should strive to be righteous at all times. The white linen is referred to in Revelation 19:8 as the righteous acts of the saints. Priests who did not wear their priestly garments when ministering in the temple incurred guilt and death. That's in Exodus 28:35 and 43. The same holds true for us. God has set up a perfect plan because he knows we're not yet perfect. God has provided the perfect acceptable sacrifice Messiah to restore us to him. And upon our repentance and baptism, we are given the Ruach HaKodesh that will lead us into all truth, which is John 14:26. However, when we sin, it's our responsibility to repent and change, since we have soiled our white, righteous garments. If we don't repent, we lose the possibility of being in the first resurrection, and so we'll end up in the second resurrection. He's given us garments of righteousness, and it's our job to keep them clean. Revelation chapter 7 talks of the great multitude that are clothed in white robes, having washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Revelation 7:14. Now those who have been martyred are also given a white robe. That's in Revelation 6:11. And those who are qualified are in the first resurrection have or will be given a white robe. That's in Ecclesiastes 9:8, which we'll read in a minute, in Revelation 3:5. It says in Ecclesiastes 9:8, let thy garments be always white, and let thy head lack no anointment. That's basically saying, don't defile your garments by walking after the flesh. Let your head lack no anointment. Be full of this oil, that is this desire to keep his commandments. And in doing that, your light will shine. The light's the Torah. His word will go out across all the world, and you will be a light to the Gentiles, and you will draw people towards you. And if you soil your garments, you need to go and wash and change. You need to repent, because you don't want to be in that position, do you? Excuse me, you're inappropriately dressed. I think you have to leave. We don't want to be in that situation. Okay, now one surefire way to stain any garment is with tea. Even with a bullet! So, should we have a quick break? Okay. Part 2. I just want to start where I left off. I just want to read something from Zechariah. We were talking about garments when we were talking about the light shining. Well, it says in Zechariah 3:3-5, Now Joshua was clothed with filthy garments and stood before the angel, and he answered and spake unto those that stood before him, saying, Take away the filthy garments from him. And unto him he said, Behold, I have caused thine iniquity to pass from thee, and I will clothe thee with the chains of raiment. And I said, Let them see a fair mitre upon his head. So they set a fair mitre upon his head, and clothed him with garments, and the angel of Jehovah stood by. Now, people say that Joshua is a shadow of Yeshua, and what we see here is a transition between him having taken upon himself our sin and being clothed with the robes and the turban of the high priest. The next verse in Zechariah 3:8 says it. It says here, Now, O Joshua the high priest, thou and thy fellows that sit before thee, for they are men wondered at. Other translations say, For they are men who are a sign, for behold, I will send forth my servant, the branch. You know that that's Yeshua, don't you? Now the vision that's given to Zechariah, Zechariah 4:2-3, he said unto me, What seest thou? And I said, I looked, and behold, a candlestick, all of gold, with a bowl upon the top of it, and his 7 lamps thereon, and menorah, and 7 pipes to the 7 lamps, which are upon the top thereof, and 2 olive trees by it, one upon the right side of the bowl, and the other upon the left side of it. Now, what we have here is a picture of a 7-branched menorah with an olive tree on either side of it. Okay? And the oil from these 2 trees is running into the bowl, which then passes through the hollow pipes and feeds the 7 lamps. We know what olive trees represent, don't we? It's the house of Judah and the house of Israel. Zechariah 4:5-6 says, Then the angel that talked with me answered and said unto me, Knowest thou not what these be? And I said, No, my Lord. Then he answered and spoke unto me, saying, This is the word of Jehovah unto Zerubbabel, saying, Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, saith Jehovah of hosts. Now, in this we switch straight away to this character called Zerubbabel. He was the leader of the first group of returning exiles from Babylon. His name means sown in Babylon, and that is a description of all that are returning to their Hebrew roots and finding their new identity to be a part of the children of Israel. What we've actually got a picture of here is this light that's shining, being fed by these two olive trees which represent the house of Judah and the house of Israel. His name, in a sense, is telling us something that's quite prophetic. His name means sown in Babylon, but moved back on. Sorry,
Sorry, mate, is it sown in Babylon or sown in Babylon?
Sown in Babylon. His father's name is Shealtiel, and it means I have asked out. And the bit where it says, not by might nor by power, the context it's talking about is the olive trees. Perhaps he's indicating that with these olive trees, no pressing or crushing is necessary. Because at this point the people will be so refined that the pure olive oil will come forth willingly through the Spirit. In other words, he'll pour out his Spirit, and his Spirit will give us the desire to follow his commandments, and that's exactly what it tells us the Spirit will be given for. Oh, we've got this there. Hello! Hello, little lady. Well, look, we're going to look at chapter 29 of Exodus. And it says, this is the thing that thou shalt do unto them, to hallow them, to minister unto me in the priest's office. Take one young bullock with 2 rams without blemish. So we're going to just have a little look now. What is a priest? Or in Hebrew, a Kohen. What is one anyway? What is one? Now, when Jehovah first brought us under the hoopah at Mount Sinai, he prophetically declared the redeemed community as a whole, everyone, every single person, even the children, to be his Mamlachat Kohanim, which means his kingdom of priests. And like virtually all ancient Hebrew words, the word Kohen has got at its root not a noun but a verb. Okay, the verb root of the noun Kohen is Kahan. One is a Kohen or a priest only when and to the extent one Kahans. Okay, I've got some pictures of some priests here, it's just crazy stuff. One is a Kohen, if at all, not because of an office or a title, but because Kahaning is what he actually does. Not because somebody puts a fancy robe on you and says, there you go, and signs a certificate. So what does it mean to Kahan? We've got to know, we just need to know these things. Well, here's a little bit of, according to Genesius, the verb root Kahan in its parallel form means to presage, predict, prophesy, and by extension to undertake anyone's course, to act as a deputy or delegate by, with authorization, presenting the words of one whose cause he is undertaking to other persons, to stand up on behalf of such authorizing person and to speak on his behalf, and to labour in the authorizing person's course. So a priest is somebody, who stands up for somebody else's cause and speaks on their behalf. And that's from the Genesius' Hebrew Chaldee lexicon to the Old Testament. That's fascinating reading now. Now, Jehovah was created and called all that are redeemed, his people, to prophesy in his name. That means in direct quotation of him, not out of their own desires and their own understanding. And he asked them as well to act as his deputy or delegate, presenting his Torah, his teaching and instruction to others. Now, obviously, the most important prerequisite to speaking Jehovah's words on his behalf is to first clearly hear and effectively internalize his words ourselves. A deputy or delegate, delegate. I felt a bit like that sometimes. A delegate, rather, cannot, or at least should not, speak what he's not heard his principle, the one he represents, speaking. Now, when the redeemed community decided on the mountain that it wasn't ready to hear Jehovah's voice, what happened was the Lord came down and spoke, and the people were terrified because his voice was very incredibly loud, and they all freaked out. So what they actually did then is they said, we don't want to hear. They actually kind of postpone their ability to Kahan on his behalf. Instead, what they did was they asked if Moshe would model for them what it was to Kahan. Oh, we can't go, we'll just see what he does and see how it goes with him. Now, if we look at it in terms of its Hebrew pictographs, we get a different picture. It begins with the letter Kaf, which is a Hebraic picture of a winged creature in flight, descending with wings spread on an object or a person, maybe like a dove. I don't know. But keep in mind that the picture of descending winged creature was not only the specific picture presented by the mercy seat on the ark, but was also the woven image in the fabric of all the curtains in the veil of the Mishkan. The hay represents revelation and inspiration, and the nun soffit represents the ultimate son or heir, i.e. the prince, the great prince, Messiah. So what does it mean to Kahan to make like a priest? According to the Hebraic word picture, to Kahan, or act like a priest, is to reveal Messiah according to a divinely imparted message. And I just look at these chaps here. Do you think they are revealing Messiah according to a divinely imparted message? Or perhaps these fellas, perhaps they are doing it. What is going on? I don't know. Or perhaps this chap, what is going on there? What is that? Oh, that's the Pope's throne, by the way. It's terrifying. Seriously, have you never seen that? That isn't that terrifying. That is the Pope's throne.
That's Adam as well in Revelation. In the bottomless pit. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. What was that about being a priest? Revealing Messiah through a divinely imparted message. Very good. Do you want another look? Terry's flabbergasted there we go. Now we need to know about being how to do this kahanim, don't we? Because in Revelation 1:6 it says, "And hath made us kings and priests unto God and his Father. To him be glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen." 1 Peter 2:5 says, "Ye also as lively stones are built up a spiritual house and a holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God by Yeshua HaMashiach." We don't need a certificate, we don't need a fancy robe, we just need the Lord. And remember, to kahan is to reveal Messiah according to a divinely imparted message. Now, this is a thing about priests which I found quite interesting. There's a thing in the Hebrew called Shiva. Now, to kahan, this means that act like a priest for Jehovah, a person must leave some things behind. Old ways, old thoughts, old priorities, old dreams, the old man as it were. It's a death-like phenomenon that has to occur in respect to those things. Today we say that you have to die to self. Now, in Hebraic tradition, when someone dies, there is a 7-day period of mourning called Shiva, in which the mourner is secluded from everyone to say goodbye to his or her loved one and to contemplate life as it will be without that loved one. Just so, Aaron and his sons were given a 7-day period of dying to whatever personal plans, dreams and ambitions they had previously entertained in order to become models for us of what it means to kahan. Now, the role of the priest can be seen as twofold. Okay? When he's facing the people, he represents Jehovah, and when he's facing Jehovah, he represents the people. Okay? There are many priests in the Torah. Moshe's father-in-law was a pagan priest, as was Joseph's. The priests in Egypt were actually supported by the state. And there are even priests mentioned amongst Jehovah's people before Aaron even gets his calling to become a priest. It's like, who were they? Okay, now in the scripture Jehovah details for us 2 types of priests that it is priests, and they were the priesthood of the Melchizedek or Melchizedek, and there was the Aaronic priesthood. Now, Aaron, his priesthood centered around the Mishkan temple. Right, these priests operate here and have no function in the heavenly sanctuary. But Yeshua, he has no function in the earthly sanctuary because he's operating in the heavenly sanctuary. Hebrews 8 tells us this. It says, "For if he were on earth, i.e. Yeshua, he should not be a priest, seeing that there are priests that offer gifts according to the Torah, who serve unto the example and shadow of heavenly things." So this is telling us when we read and learn about these priests like Aaron and stuff. They're serving as an example and a shadow of heavenly things. That's how we're to see them. As Moshe was admonished of God when he was about to make the tabernacle for, see that he said, that thou make all things according to the pattern showed to thee in the mount. Okay, so Aaron and his priesthood, it's all to do with this earthly tabernacle, which is a shadow of the heaven. Now, as priest, our role is to represent Jehovah to the world. Yeah, we are to bring and be a light, and we're to bring people to him by professing him in word and deed. Now, this idea of drawing near, James 4:8 says, draw nigh to God and he will draw nigh to you. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. The priests would offer the offerings for the people. We all know this, don't we? We've all seen the pictures of them bringing them on the brazen altar. Now, the Hebrew word for offering is korban, and the root of this is koro, which means to draw near. Now, people think sacrifice means Jehovah wants you to give something up. That's all we can get in the head. But what korban means is that's not really what it means. Korban is the function that enables you to draw near to Jehovah. It might actually involve giving something up, but this is not necessarily what it is. It's the function that makes it possible for you to draw near to the Lord. Now, Exodus 21:8 tells us that Jehovah is speaking directly to Moshe. Okay? He says, get your brother Aaron, I want you to make him into a priest. The rabbis say that Moshe offered sacrifices long before Aaron, and that he represented Jehovah to the people. He was able to go into the tabernacle when Jehovah told him, just as Aaron would. Okay? But Moshe's priesthood was different to Aaron's priesthood because it predated it. And the rabbis say that Moshe is a Melech Tzedek priest. That's interesting, isn't it? And if you think about it, what else could he really be? So let's have a little look at it. We hear that Yeshua is called a priest forever after the order of Melech Tzedek. Now, in English we hear order, and we think of an order of monks or nuns, don't we? Like Trappists, and they all got to shake their heads a funny way, and some of them don't say things, and there's your Franciscans, and there's, I don't know what it is, there's all kinds. Okay. So when they say after the order of Melech Tzedek, they think it's an order of priests, like, the Franciscans or something. But in fact, that's not what the Hebrew phrase indicates. The Hebrew word translated order is divra, and the word for after is al, which is a very ambiguous preposition which most often means about or concerning, but can also have many other meanings like above or over or against. Divra means literally cause or reason, and the phrase al divra could literally be translated after the reason or cause of Melchizedek. That is to say, a priest for the same reason as Melchizedek. So that's a more accurate translation of after the order of Melchizedek. It's not like like they all have the same clothes and yes, they all have the dinner at 6 o'clock. It's not saying that, it's saying you're a priest for the same reason as Melchizedek. So we could say that Aaron was a priest for the reason of maintaining the earthly sanctuary, and that Moshe was a priest for the same reason as Melchizedek. Now, interesting fact about the Levitical priesthood. Originally, the firstborn sons, which would be the priests, who would serve in the tabernacle and the temple and be the spiritual leaders, that's the firstborn sons from every tribe. Now, when Jehovah spared the firstborn during the plague of the firstborn in Egypt, he acquired them basically and designated them for that special role. He only killed all the Egyptians, and he kept the Israelites. He was like, yeah, they're going to be my ministers. Now, after the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai, the people made and worshipped the golden calf, didn't they? The only tribe that did not participate in the shameful act was the tribe of Levi. At this time, the firstborn lost their special status and it was transferred to the Levites. We read that in Numbers 8:16-18. For they are wholly given unto me from among the children of Israel, instead of such as open every womb. Even instead of the firstborn of all the children of Israel have I taken them unto me. Talking about the Levites. But all the firstborn of the children of Israel are mine, both man and beast. On the day that I smote every firstborn in the land of Egypt, I sanctified them for myself, and I have taken the Levites for all the firstborn of the children of Israel. In other words, James, the Levites are doing it now. Malachi 2:4-10 says this, and ye shall know that I have sent this commandment unto you, that my covenant might be with Levi, saith Jehovah Sabaoth. My covenant was with him of life and peace, and I gave them to him for the fear wherewith he feared me and was afraid before my name. This is talking about something that we have to listen to here, because we're called to be priests. The law of truth was in his mouth, and iniquity was not found in his lips. He walked with me in peace and equity, and did turn many away from iniquity. We know iniquity is a transgression of the Torah. For the priest's lips should keep knowledge, and they should seek the Torah at his mouth. We're all called to be priests, so we should be taking special note of this. For he is the messenger of the Lord of hosts. Wow. We're called to be the messengers of the Lord of hosts. People should seek his Torah at our lips. Now, his Torah, we're told, is truth. Now, I'm just going to go through these scriptures. Psalm 122. Deliver my soul, O Lord, from lying lips and from a deceitful tongue. Psalm 119, 142. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. That's what's supposed to be on our lips, the truth, his law. David says here, deliver me, O Lord, from lying lips, from a deceitful tongue. For most of my walk as a Christian, I needed to be delivered from lying lips and deceitful tongues. And the Lord has. He's reached out and delivered me, and I thank him for it. The psalmist says in Psalm 119, 163, I hate and abhor lying, but thy Torah do I love. Psalm 119, 29, remove from me the way of lying, and grant me thy Torah graciously. We're getting a picture of what it means to be a priest, aren't we? It's to walk in his truth. People should seek at our lips his truth. We're supposed to be his messengers, delivering his message. A priest should both walk the Torah and profess it with his lips. He says, doesn't he, I want the fruit of your lips. We are to speak his truth, because as priests we are messengers of the Most High. What a job! That's insane, isn't it? I know there's people in our family, and so-and-so's got a fabulous job. He won't believe this, and they're well in with so-and-so. And they, it's nice, yeah. When are you going to do something with your life, son? I'm a messenger of the Most High, Lord. I'm trying my best anyway. Exodus, I love me one. Don't get me wrong. Exodus 19, 5-6. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine, and ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and an holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. That's us. Okay, so if you obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you're a kingdom of priests. Wow. So if we keep his covenant, we're his. I want to be his. I'm a kingdom of priests. Deuteronomy 7:9 says, know therefore that Jehovah thy God, he is God, the faithful God, which keepeth covenants. That's what we need to be, in covenant with him, to be a priest. And mercy.
Aaron wants to say that hair should be fire.
Oh my word! Well, that's not good, is it? How are you going to put them straight? That's terrible. I don't know. Doesn't surprise me. The faithful God which keepeth covenant and mercy with them that love him, and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. So his priests love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. That's what it's telling us. Being a priest is reliant on keeping his covenant. Psalm 78:10 says, they kept not the covenant of God and refused to walk in his Torah. So we don't want to be in that camp, do we? We don't want to be refusing to walk in his law. Isaiah 24:5, the earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. If you want to break the covenant that you have with the Lord, if you don't no longer want to be a child of his covenant, transgress his laws, change the ordinances, and that's it. It's a done deal. You're no longer a child of his covenant. You're not a priest. and you're not a messenger of the Most High anymore. Isaiah 42:21 says, Jehovah is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He will magnify the Torah and make it honourable. If you want to be a priest, you better not transgress Jehovah's law. After all, he seeks to magnify it, and a priest is supposed to represent him. Okay? He wants to magnify his Torah throughout the nations. And we're supposed to be messengers of the Most High. So that's our job, isn't it? And it brings us back again to this lamp that's burning. It says, doesn't it? The lamp's the commandment, and the light is the Torah. We want that to shine brightly. It only shines brightly when it's full of oil, which is the Spirit of God. But it tells us that the Spirit of God is given to us to cause us to walk in his statutes. This oil is the desire that we have to keep his commandments, so that that light shines, so his law is magnified. Verse 2 says, unleavened bread and cakes unleavened, tempered with oil, and wafers unleavened, anointed with oil, and wheat and flour shalt thou make them. And thou shalt put them into one basket, and bring them in the basket, the bullock and the 2 rams. And Aaron and his sons shalt thou bring unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and shalt wash them with water. Little thing about water, miraculous stuff. JP put me onto an amazing documentary. What's it called? Water, the Great Mystery or something. Water's got a memory. It's absolutely nuts. Now, water is the primary source and vivifying factor. What a word. I like the idea of being vivified. Of all substance, and by extension, all life as we know it. Without water, there's no hope of life, is there? Okay? Now, in Hebrew thought, water is seen as endued by the Creator with the power not just to sustain the flesh, but to purify the soul and to restore and replenish life to the neshama, which is the God-breathed spirit of a man. Now, the Hebrew sages such as Rashi interpret the phrase, wash them in the water, as literally meaning to give them a mikveh, a baptism. Now I think it's all interesting the way this all works. These priests, they've got to have this baptism, right? We've read before, what's the age that the priest serves from? 30 to 50. And we've got a picture here of Yeshua. And what happened to him? He was baptized. What age was he? He was at 30, wasn't he? These are all the things that happen to a priest. Now this is nuts, because the particular mikveh of Aaron and his sons at Sinai, with which the service of the Mishkan was to be inaugurated, was very special. Why? Because the waters that were available on Mount Sinai in the driest part of the desert were not natural waters, really. The only water at Sinai was the water Jehovah brought forth from the rock of Horeb. There's a picture of it, by the way. 1 Corinthians 10:4 says this, doesn't it? And did all drink the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ. So the source of the waters in which Aaron and his sons were to make mikveh was the rock, which was Messiah. So ask yourself, when did water pour forth from the Messiah? You can see this, can't you? John 19:33-34. They came to Yeshua and saw that he was dead already. They'd broken all his legs. But one of the soldiers with a spear pierced his side and came out with blood and water. And the point is that the message of the Messiah, even his death, his burial, and his resurrection, is all through Torah's narratives regarding the Mishkan, the priesthood of Aaron, and the Sinai experience. Every single page in the Torah speaks of Yeshua. It's insane. Now, verse 5 it says, and thou shalt take the garments and put upon Aaron the coat and the robe of the ephod and the breastplate, and gird him, there we go again, with the curious girdle of the ephod, and thou shalt put the mitre upon his head, and put the holy crown upon the mitre, and thou shalt take the anointing oil, pour it upon his head and anoint it. Now, the second phase of the post-mikveh instructions consists of the anointing of Aaron with the shemen ha-mishcha, which is the oil of anointing. Okay? Yeshua was also anointed with oil, wasn't he? By Mary at Bethany in John 12:1-8. And in Hebrews 1:8-9 it says, be unto the Son, but unto the Son he saith, thy throne, O God, is for ever and ever. A scepter of righteousness is the scepter of thy kingdom. Thou hast loved righteousness and hated iniquity. Therefore God, even like God, hath anointed thee with the oil of gladness above thy fellows. So we've had this water baptism, And then we've had this anointing with oil. And it says, and thou shalt bring his sons and put goats upon them, and thou shalt gird them at girdles, Aaron and his sons, and put bonnets on them. Bonnets? Girdles and bonnets. Doesn't sound very manly, does it? I'm sure it was. And the priest's office shall be theirs for a perpetual statute, and thou shalt consecrate Aaron and his sons. And thou shalt cause a bullock to be brought before the tabernacle of the congregation, and Aaron and his sons shall put their hands upon the head of the bullock. And thou shalt kill the bullock before the Lord by the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And thou shalt take of the blood of the bullock, and put it upon the horns of thy altar with thy finger, and pour all the blood beside the bottom of the altar. Lots of blood. There's always lots of blood, isn't there, in the Old Testament? What's going on? Hang on, what's happening here? Now, something I have to get clear is the persons bringing the animals as surrogates for themselves and their families were never intended to trust in the blood of those animals for their salvation, atonement, or forgiveness, or means of access. As they contemplated each animal slain on the brazen altar of the Mishkan, Jehovah's intention was that they see, as Abraham saw, the lamb slain from before the foundation of the world. It was all to point to the Messiah. Only then could they be assured that their atonement and their salvation were eternal, unchangeable, and part of Jehovah's finished work of creation. J.P. puts it marvellous. When the Lord created creation, he did it like the whole thing. We see things as they go along, but the Lord sees it all completed. It's incredible. He said it's like slideshows. I mean, like, next slide please, next slide please. But the Lord's got the whole box set there, and he's like, oh yeah, that's creation, that's how I created it. Now Jehovah wanted all mankind to begin to see in shadow form what Abraham saw. Hang on, Abraham saw, what did he see? Now, Abraham's illumination took place on Mount Moriah just before he plunged his knife into his son Yitzhak. Torah tells us Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught by his horns. Okay, the actual Hebrew here, it says he looked up and behind him, that's how it's translated. So behind him, how did he do that? How did he see behind him? Actually, the Hebrew word means he actually saw the future glory. Now, even Yeshua points to this because he says, John 8:56, your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad. So he looked up and he saw the glory. He saw the lamb that Jehovah was going to provide. It's amazing, isn't it? This is Abraham when he went with Isaac. Now Jehovah is eternal. He's not bound by the strictures of time. So when before the foundation of the world, in eternity, Jehovah conceived and spoke of the lamb slain for atonement and salvation. The death of Yeshua on Golgotha was fixed, it was done and finished. But because we are in time and space and running out of time, we will skip through verses 13 to 34. Okay? They describe lots of the details that go on. And it's interesting stuff, but it just tells you the details of how these priests were consecrated. So you can read that in your own time. Verse 35 says, and thus shalt thou do unto Aaron and to his sons according to all the things which I have commanded thee. 7 days shalt thou consecrate them. Is that 7 days again? That's the same as the period of mourning. And thou shalt offer every day a bullock for a sin offering for atonement, and thou shalt cleanse the altar when thou hast made an atonement for it, and thou shalt anoint it to sanctify it. 7 days thou shalt make an atonement for the altar and sanctify it, and it shall be an altar most holy. Okay, the actual words here, quite interesting. Kodesh, Kodeshim. It's talking about holy of holies. So that whatsoever toucheth the altar shall be holy. So if you look at it, it's actually saying that the consecrated brazen altar, which is in the courtyard of the Mishkan, and is therefore accessible to everybody, right, is described as holy of holies, and it's the same descriptive phrase as is given to the inner chamber where the ark is located. This is bizarre, isn't it? The reason why would that be? Because every presentation of a surrogate at this altar, according to the covenant protocol, necessarily pointed to the real thing. The altar was described as holy of holies. Even the holy of holies behind the veil was no holier. And notice, if you touched the altar, holiness was imputed to you. And some people would do this, but get a grip of what holiness means. Holiness means set apart to God, who can and will judge and discipline each one who is set apart to him. In some cases, therefore, it could be very, very dangerous to grab hold of the horns of the altar. That's something that they used to do so that the holiness would be imputed to them. His discipline is good long term because it molds us and shapes us. Like it all in one big foul go. Verse 38 says, "Now this is that which thou shalt offer upon the altar, 2 lambs of the first year, day by day continually. The 1 lamb shalt thou offer in the morning," as I make a note of this, "and the other lamb shalt thou offer at evening. Now, and with 1 lamb, 1/10 deal of flour mingled with the 4th part of an hin of beaten oil, and the 4th part of an hin of wine for a drink offering. And the other lamb shalt thou offer at evening, and shall do thereto according to the meat offering of the morning, and according to the drink offering thereof, for a sweet savour, and an offering made by fire unto the Lord. And then it says, "This shall be a continual burnt offering throughout your generations at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation before the Lord, where I will meet you to speak there unto thee, and there I will meet with the children of Israel." Cool. "And the tabernacle shall be sanctified by my glory, and I will sanctify the tabernacle of the congregation and the altar. I will sanctify also both Aaron and his sons to minister to me in the priest's office. And I will dwell among the children of Israel and will be their God. And they shall know that I am Jehovah their God, that brought them forth out of the land of Egypt, that I may dwell among them. I am Jehovah their God." Wow. Now, the Mishkan was first and foremost a tent of meeting with God. At the brazen altar in the Mishkan's outer court, Jehovah, therefore, this is where they were to meet. This is insane, isn't it? He was offering an open and magnanimous invitation to meet with all comers, and every one of the carefully crafted set of meetings the bridegroom promised to make himself available for at this altar was skillfully designed to go to the very heart of the relationship, to bring healing and restoration, to reaffirm the betrothal covenant. Isn't this lovely? He says, "I'm going to meet you at the doorway of the tent of meeting, all the people of Israel." I've read the Torah a few times and I kind of missed that. He says, "Yeah, I'm going to meet you, all the children of Israel." Like, wow, amazing. No wonder this brazen altar is called Holy of Holies. Now that Jehovah instructed us as a nation to make a once in the morning and a once in the evening remembrance of the atonement he wrought before the foundation of the world. So in the morning and in the evening, remember it. What he's done for us, the sacrifice that he made for us. Remember as well that he will, in Deuteronomy 6, which we read later in the Torah, tell us to speak of his Torah when we lie down and when we rise up, the morning and the evening again. Now, the daily offerings were illustrations of how he wants us to consecrate and reconsecrate us regularly by communion with us. Maybe it's telling us to set aside each morning and evening for prayer and attention to the Torah. That doesn't sound like a bad idea to me. You could say that the first and last moments of our days belong to him. What better way to wake up and dedicate your day to him? And what better way to end it than to say, "Oh Lord, I might have faffed this up and I might have done this, but I hope you're pleased with this." That's something that we should practice. This is what the priests have done. We're called to be priests. Now, the altar of incense is something we're going to have a quick look at. In Deuteronomy 6:5, it says, "Thou shalt love Jehovah thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy might." Okay. Now, the sages say that the priest's Avidar, which is his service, remember, of the Holy of Holies, represents the heart. You know, it says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart." They say that what he did in the Holy of Holies represents in some way this thing of loving the Lord with all your heart. And this is the most intimate thing, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because in the Holy of Holies, you've got the Ark of the Covenant we've got the Word of God in there, and that's what we're supposed to have written on our hearts. We're supposed to have intimate time with the Lord. Now, that the service of the holy place, that represents the soul. Okay, so the next bit, can you see the diagram up there? So we've got the Holy of Holies, then we've got the holy place. They say that the service that went on there represents loving it with all your soul. And then the outer courts, they say the service that went on there represents loving him with all your strength. So we just have a little look and see what that means. And we're looking at the altar of incense. So they break down the soul into three parts, which is the mind, the will, and the emotions. They say that the three items in the holy place represent these three. Okay? Now, notice that everyone called to perform the Avodah, or the service of the holy place, was a close family member. So the father Aaron and his sons. Similarly, they say that the Avodah, the service in loving of the Lord of the soul, is always primarily centered around and is designed to instruct our activities in our own households and our relations with our closest family members. So they say the Avodah HaNefesh, which is the service of the soul, loving him with your soul, is designed to enable us to share the fruit of our service of the heart. That's our intimate relationship with the Lord, with our spouses, with our children, with our parents, and with our siblings. Okay? Now, according to the sages, the menorah corresponds to the mind. Okay? And they say our reasonable bridal avodah in relation to this component of the soul is to keep it burning and casting steady and even light into the household where our family functions, even into morning forever. Okay? This priest, his job was to dress the lamp, wasn't it? Every evening and every morning. Zayla showbread corresponds to the will, that's what they say. And our reasonable bridal avodah in regards to this component of the soul is to constantly refresh the bread supply, as well as the salt, sprinkle the frankincense, and pour out the fine wine of the kingdom every Sabbath. Okay? Now, we come to the altar of incense. They say that this corresponds to our emotions. We've talked about this, we've told you before, people get far too emotional sometimes. Now, our reasonable bridal avodah, they say, service in this regard is to surrender the mixture of ordinary events and substances of our lives on earth to the fire of Jehovah in such a way as to cause a sweet, pleasing, fragrant aroma to fill our households. I kind of like that. In other words, just the ordinary things that are in your day. You know, we did that, we did that. Surrender it all to Him in such a way as to make a pleasing aroma to His nostrils that fills your whole house with this pleasing smell that pleases the Lord. Now, the home and the household and the closest members of our family, how we relate to them, these are the major testing grounds of loving Him with all our souls. That's what the sages say. Now, as we move out and talk about, does this still apply with loving Him with all our strength? In the outer court, there were three primary furnishings in the outer court as to which avodah were to be performed by the priestly family, instruct us on the particulars of loving Him with all our might, all our strength. And these furnishings are the entry gate, the brazen altar, and the bronze laver. The priestly family was responsible for supervising the entry gate or the way into the Mishkan, okay, and inspecting everyone and everything that sought to enter for cleanness and for blemishes. Similarly, we are each responsible for guarding the entrance to our homes and hearts of people, things, words and activities that would bring in that which is common and profane or unclean. So they're likening our roles in our everyday lives to the roles that were carried out by the priests here, because after all, we are supposed to be priests ourselves, aren't we? And the priestly family was then responsible for leading, nurturing and blessing those who entered the Mishkan for holy purposes, particularly forsaking the ways of the world, turning from lawless behaviour, surrendering all things to the will of Jehovah, and worshipping and communing with Him. And the focal point of this, okay, was the brazen altar. So this is one of our roles. As we meet the people in the world outside, this is what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be helping people to forsake the ways of the world, bringing them into a place where they can say goodbye to all their lawless behaviour and surrender all things to His will. And the place that all this comes about happens is at this place of sacrifice, this place of drawing near to the Lord. Finally, the priestly family was responsible for maintaining its own purity despite interactions with all sorts of uncleanness, vanity and profanity and others. That's something as well, isn't it? We all have to go out in the world, and we sometimes get surrounded by things that it's not good. But we have to maintain our own purity, don't we? And we have to make sure that our garments are never spotted. Because as we said, if we go after the world and we walk according to the flesh, our garments will become spotted. We're priests. We're supposed to be dressed for beauty and for glory. For Him. Now, verse 30 will tell us a little about the altar of incense. We'll be finishing shortly. Thou shalt make an altar to burn incense upon of shittim wood. Shalt thou make it. A cubit shall be the length thereof, and a cubit the breadth thereof. 4 square shall it be, and 2 cubits shall be the height thereof. The horns thereof shall be of the same. And thou shalt overlay it with pure gold, the top thereof and the sides thereof round about, and the horns thereof. And thou shalt make unto it a crown of gold round about. And the 2 gold rings shall thou make to it under the crown of it, by the corners thereof. Upon the 2 sides of it shalt thou make it. And they shall be for places for the staves to bear it withal. And thou shalt make the staves of shittim wood, and overlay them with gold. And thou shalt put it before the veil that is by the ark of the testimony, before the mercy seat that is over the testimony, where I will meet with thee. And Aaron shall burn thereon sweet incense every morning when he dresseth the lamps. He shall burn incense upon it. And when Aaron lighteth the lamps at even, he shall burn incense upon it, a perpetual incense before the Lord throughout your generations. Again, every morning and every evening, we tend the lamps with the oil. What's the oil? That's our desire to obey, isn't it? But we also offer up prayers and worship. See, he's teaching us through this how to be a priest. We're to be a kingdom of priests, and he's teaching us what that entails. Malachi 1:11 says this: For the rising of the sun, even unto the going down of the same, my name shall be great among the Gentiles, and in every place incense shall be offered unto my name, and a pure offering. For my name shall be great among the heathen, saith Jehovah Sabaoth. Now, is a question: are you fulfilling your part of this great plan of offering incense to Jehovah's name? Are you cooperating with His plan to make His name great among the nations? Because that's what we're supposed to be doing as messengers of the Most High. There's an interesting thing to note as well. Unlike the brazen altar, the holy one described for us earlier, this golden altar was to be located outside the view of the common man. Very often, when we offer up our prayers and our worship, we go to a private place to do it where nobody looks, don't we? Verse 9 says, You shall offer no strange incense thereupon, no burnt sacrifice, no meat offering, neither shall ye put drink offering thereupon. Notice it says, don't put any strange incense thereupon. We have to do things according to His word. If we do it our own way, any other way, it's not good to Him. And Aaron shall make an atonement upon the horns of it once a year with the blood of the sin offering of atonements. Once in a year shall he make atonement upon it throughout the generations. It is most holy unto Jehovah. Kodesh, Kodeshi. Again, this is being described, this altar, as Kodesh, Kodeshi. So we've got another altar here, the altar of incense, described as the Holy of Holies. So we've got 2 altars that are described as Holy of Holies. Now, why was one altar to be visible to all the world, and the other to be completely hidden from the view of ordinary men and for just the priest only? Okay? Perhaps Jehovah did it this way because He wants us to know that for every action in which we participate in the physical world, there is a corresponding action which takes place completely unseen in the spiritual world. Every single activity of the unseen realm of the holy place corresponds to the activity in the outer court. But what was going on, where everybody could look at the brazen altar, there was something going on where not everybody could look inside in the holy place. And if you understand this spiritual principle, you can see in every mitzvah, a mitzvah is a good deed that you do in keeping the commandment of the Torah. Every mitzvah of the Torah in which you participate on earth, a much greater heavenly significance is perpetuated and has a bigger effect. What seems insignificant to the human mind, you see, has huge significance, not because of what we do, but because of what He does in the unseen world that corresponds to what we do. Okay? Now why smoke up the holy place? That's what incense does, isn't it? It sends smoke everywhere. What's going on?
Just wants to know why it's called God.
Why do we call him God? In English, I don't know, because the Hebrew word is Elohim, and that's actually a word which talks about him being so amazing and magnificent that we can't even describe him as one. Elohim means plural, it means many. He's that amazing, you can't even pin him down to one thing. And his name is Yahweh or Jehovah. I think the one calls him Yahweh. Well, I don't know why we call him God in English, I don't know. Sorry. Why fill the holy place and the Holy of Holies with sweet smelling cloud? Now, when Jehovah called his people to himself on Mount Sinai, he caused the whole mountain to be engulfed in a thick cloud. Remember before we said things that happened on the mountain, it was like a pattern for what's going to happen with the priests and keeping the people away and stuff. It's all like a pattern. Now, Mount Sinai, it says, was covered with smoke, with a thick cloud over the mountain. Okay, so what's this telling us? This is how they seen it. So the smoke on top of Sinai was the hoopah, or the wedding canopy, or the shade spread by Jehovah for his betrothed. It represented his promise of intimate relationship and ultimate commitment. Under this canopy, he took his vows to the redeemed community. That's under this canopy, he claimed us as his own, and he set us apart to him and to him alone. That's why they have a hoopah. I never knew that. This is how they seen it, this big smoke cloud where they were betrothed. That's what the hoop was all about. It's a representation of that. So the purpose of the incense then was to make sure Israel, including the mixed multitude, never forgot the hoopah or what happened there. And in our prayer lives, we must never forget the betrothal covenant or the price, the bride price that was paid for us. Because the incense represents our prayers. I don't know if you're aware of that. Now a quick word on prayer. This is Psalm 141:2. Let my prayer be set forth before thee as incense, and the lifting up of my hands as the evening sacrifice. Revelation 5:8 says, and when they had taken the book, the four beasts and the 420 elders fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of odours, incense in most translations, which are the prayers of the saints. So our prayers are likened to this incense that goes up as a warning. Oh, okay. This is regarding offering incense, which, as we know, is prayer. Yeah. Right. The coals of the fire. You know this altar of incense, okay? And we burn this incense on it. Well, the coals of the fire were to be taken from the sin offering into the censer, combined with sweet incense, and placed upon the altar of incense to be a sweet savour to Jehovah. So the fire comes from the place where the sacrifice is made. The censer of coals would be the recognition of the sacrifice, and that this is the prerequisite to the acceptance of prayer to Jehovah. A sweet savour is something that must be smelled. We agree, don't we? In Hebrew, the word af is the word for nose, and it's also the word for anger and wrath. Oh, okay. In Leviticus 9:22 to 10:5, we read that when the sacrifice is offered and the fire of the offering is according to Jehovah's instructions, then the fire of Jehovah comes down and consumes the offering. However, if man chooses choices do not appease Jehovah, but to do it his own way, then the fire and wrath of Jehovah comes down and consumes the man instead of the sacrifice. You with me? So, regarding this whole thing of prayer, is something that we should have a little look at. Proverbs 28:9 tells us this: he that turneth away his ear from hearing the Torah, even his prayer shall be an abomination. The incense that was offered, okay, it had to be lit and set on fire by the fire that came from his altar, which is described as Holy of Holies, the sacrifice that was made there. If we try and set this incense on fire in any other way, then we're consumed. He's not satisfied and he's not pleased. And when we come before him every morning and every evening, as we should, if we're going to follow this model of the priests, when we offer this incense, it's a reminder of this hooper. It's a reminder of the betrothal covenant. It's a reminder that we're his people. And it's also a reminder of the price that he paid, isn't it? For us to be able to be called his. Shall we pray then?